Hi, everyone. It's Gail here. It's 1 o'clock on Saturday in Santa Barbara, where I live. Um, if you are here, you're welcome to go to the comments and just say hello so I know who's here. And I know this was scheduled last minute, so there may not be that many people, but you're welcome to write in the comments to just say hello and let me know that you're here and where you are from. So you can do that whenever you feel like it. And I'm just gonna wait a couple of minutes here just to let people get settled. And this recording will be available, so I'll send that out for the people who aren't able to be here right now. So we'll just wait a minute or two. That's great. And as I said, you're welcome to write a comment and say hello, and I'll be able to see that. And then if you have any questions or want to comment on anything that I'm saying, I'll be able to see that as a chat on this side of the screen. Okay. So I'm really happy to be here today, and happy to be able to connect with you in this way. Most people have come to know me through my writings and postings on Facebook and Friday Inspiration newsletter, maybe my books, I don't know. But this is another opportunity to connect with me live and for me to connect with you as well. And I'm so grateful for this technology because we get to do this. So the title of our gathering today is Awakening in Everyday Life in the Body, the Mind, and the Heart. And that about covers everything, right? All of our human experience in the body, in the mind, and in the heart. So let's start by talking about what awakening is. And I want to say welcome to the people who are commenting on this side to let me know that you're here. Hi to all of you. So awakening, there's a lot of misunderstanding about awakening. So people seem to think there's a before and an after. There's I have it and somebody else doesn't have it, or I don't have it and that person over there seems to know something that I don't know. And there's a certain reality to that, but really awakening is available to all of us always in every moment. And it's about a simple shift of attention away from the objects of our experience. And by objects, and I'll talk more about that quite a bit as we go, meaning thoughts, physical sensations, situations, ideas that we have about ourselves, beliefs, any kind of perception like a sound, anything that comes and goes. And when we attach our attention onto what comes and goes, so these ideas about ourselves and other people, our emotions, when we attach our attention there, then we're actually missing the ground of being that's always here. So it's a simple overlooking, to not understand this awakening is a simple overlooking of what's already here. So we're so used to having our attention connected into our thoughts and our feelings and our ideas about things and our perceptions of the external world. We don't stop and open our experience to all that's here and look within and then expanding beyond that. So there's a certain substance, like a ground of being, I like that term, where it's beyond thought, it's outside of thought, it's a certain kind of feeling or knowing that things are okay and that there's a certain wholeness about us. And there's a certain deep acceptance of everything as it is right now. So this kind of sense of well-being or groundedness is always here and available to us, but it's just not noticed when we're attached to all the identities that we take very personally about ourselves. So we all know what it feels like to be contracted into our thoughts and into our ideas about things. The body feels tense and contracted. We might think that we have anxiety or depression and define ourselves in that way. We might have ideas about unworthiness floating along through our minds, and we grab those ideas and think that they're actually true about ourselves. We all know what that's like, because that's the, let's say, normal human experience. That's what most people think is the experience of life. But when we slow things down and stop moving our attention into these beliefs and stories, and we just take a moment of silence, and I'm speaking slowly on purpose here so that you can feel that there's a silence between these words. There's a stillness here. So even when I'm not actually speaking, there's something very alive here that's outside of any thought that you might have and any feeling or emotion. And we often can sense this groundedness when we come together in a group like this. So we can't see each other, but right now, as far as I know, there are 6 or 7 people who have let me know that they're here. And we're all here in this field of being aware. And we're all here with this true intention in our hearts to be free. So when we find this spaciousness in the moment, we recognize that there is an option available. There's flexibility. When we're completely identified with our identities and our thoughts and the way that we think about ourselves, we don't know that we have any options available. But when we rest our attention away from all of those objects and expand into this presence that's here right now, we can see that we can just let those thoughts and feelings and ideas about things float through our awareness. So if at any time you would like to comment or say anything about what I'm offering right now, or ask a question, I'm taking a look at the chat. I'm a bit of multitasking here. So if there's anything that you want to say or about your experience right now, anything that you'd like to ask me, you're welcome to do that, and I'll take a look and respond to you. So why don't we just do a little bit of guided meditation here. So I want to invite everyone to close your eyes if that feels right for you. And just take a breath or two. And when I say that, and I do talk about the breath a lot, it's a conscious breath. And it's by taking a conscious breath, it's a way to connect in to our present moment experience. So feel the inhale and the sensations of the inhale. And then feel the exhale as it happens. So you're right with what's happening in this very moment. Inhaling and exhaling. Very simple. And then when it feels right to you, I want to invite you to move your attention away from the breath If that feels good to you, certainly continue doing that. But see if you can expand your attention beyond the breath to recognize all that's here right now. So you become this vast field of being aware. So there's this being aware experience. And that's where you are right now. That's who you are. You're this being aware spaciousness. And then you might notice that things arise in that. So maybe there are thoughts that come through. You certainly hear the sound of my voice. Maybe you feel sensations in your body or emotions. But those are very lightly noticed. And where I want to invite you to keep your attention is resting in this space of being aware. It's outside of any thoughts and any ideas about anything. It's outside of your body, although it includes your body. It's this vast openness that everything arises in. And see if you can deepen into this right now. And even to say deepen, I don't know exactly what that means for you. But see how much you can let yourself rest in this field of spaciousness. And notice how alive it is here. You might notice that there is this spaciousness that doesn't have thoughts in it, although thought can appear in it. And even without thought, there's a certain aliveness here, just in this very moment. Even if you get that just for a split second, it's amazing to realize that you don't have to think to be alive. You don't have to think to exist. There's an existence that's already here prior to any thoughts. And this is your essential wholeness. It's this place, it's not actually a place, it's this knowing that everything here is okay. So any thought or story can appear, and this okayness doesn't go anywhere. And this knowing, this spaciousness is always here like an anchor for you. Of course, we get lost in stories and ideas and beliefs about things and a critical voice that runs in many of our heads. We get lost in all of that, and that's okay. But when we gather here together today for this beautiful intention to be free, what we begin to realize is that buying into all of those ideas about things is optional. There's this sense of okayness always here that's available. And when we're lost in thought, it's here waiting for our return. In the midst of the most intense thought storm, this presence, this spaciousness is always here, quiet and still. So you're welcome to stay here with your eyes closed, or if you'd like to open them, you're welcome to do that. So there was a question here, what about meditation? And this was a little bit of meditation. And maybe you're asking about, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, Shauna, but maybe you're asking about formal meditation, a formal meditation practice. And that can certainly help. It supports our slowing things down in our everyday lives so that we can discover this stillness. So certainly if you feel moved to have a formal meditation practice, it's helpful. But it's not required. Because ultimately, in awakening, there's, and she's asking about meditating on the breath. Sure, feeling the sensations of the breath is a way to begin to anchor ourselves in this awareness experience. And this is what's here always and in any moment. So in a thought storm or in, caught up in a lot of emotions, we might call it meditation to when this like light goes on and we realize that we've been caught in these emotions or these stories, then we can take a breath and open again into this spaciousness. So we might even call that, I've called this gathering today everyday awakening. We might call that everyday meditation or every moment meditation. In awakening, in those moments of awakening, there's no unconscious. Everything is conscious and available to us. We can be aware of everything that's going on. And in this awareness, we're also at peace with it. So there's no struggle when we find that sense of wholeness and that essential well-being. And we hold everything from that place of peace. So I want to talk a little bit about awakening in the mind. So let's start there. When the mind is quiet, or when you're not interested in any of the thoughts that run through, so I want to make it really clear, the goal here is not to stop thoughts, and it's not, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong if negative thoughts are running through your mind. These are very conditioned, and for the most part, this is what the mind does. It tries to protect us by thinking negative things, by worrying about the future, by going over the things that have happened in the past over and over, trying to work it out. That's what the mind does. So there's a certain negativity and contraction to most of our thinking when we really study it. So if you have thoughts that have negative content running through your mind, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong. But the option here is to not believe any of those thoughts. For me, in my path along the way, it was a huge turning point when I got, I really am finished with all of this negative thinking, and I don't want to believe any of these thoughts anymore. Certainly, there's a little bit of stickiness sometimes, but I see that, as quickly as possible. But that knowing that none of these thoughts are going to help you. So when a negative thought about yourself runs through your mind and you think of yourself as unworthy or unlovable, as much as you can and as quickly as you can, realize that that's just a thought running through your mind. It's not personal to you. In a way, it's none of your business. And the more that you can disengage with that thinking, the more you'll be able to notice this underlying quiet that's always here in all of our experience. So this quiet mind is here, and you can notice that it's here, even if there are thoughts kind of running through your mind and chattering along. Your job is just not to engage with that. So certainly the mind can get very quiet, so there are very few or no thoughts, but that's not a requirement. That will come when it comes, if it does. But it's the same to disengage with the content of thinking. And when we do that, in the awakened mind, there's so much space. I like to think of it as infinite mind. It's the sense of mind that's way beyond your brain and way beyond the container of your skull or your head. It's this vast sense of knowing where everything is perceived and everything is known, but nothing is attached to and nothing is contracted. So that means you can see all kinds of thoughts running through, but you don't have to attach to them. So then there we are with infinite mind. And a metaphor that I like is a mind like the sky. So think of your mind or imagine your mind vast like the sky without any clouds in it at all. This is awakened mind or infinite mind. It's alive and lit up and excited about life. It's open to everything, not choosing this or that, but open to everything. Then when a negative thought comes through, a worrying thought or a self-critical thought or one that judges someone else or one of your familiar stories about the past that happened that you can't let go of, what it might be interesting to do, to experiment with, is to lose interest in the content of that thinking. And there you are with open mind and vast mind, available to everything. So I want to ask people who are here, if you can get a sense of that, or if you ever had in your life, and I'm watching the comments to see what you want to say. Can you get a little bit of a taste of that infinite mind, that open mind that's not contracted into thoughts? It's a certain kind of allowing or knowing or openness, really an openness to everything. Let's see. Sorry, I realize I have to scroll here. Okay, so let me go back to some questions. How does one get rid of a fear that really isn't there? I love that question because there's a certain understanding, Karina, in that you know that fear isn't really here, but somehow there's a creation of it, or there's a sense that it's here and somehow affecting you. And it's not about getting rid of that fear. In fact, you're so close to this knowing by your question. It's really recognizing that fear is here and knowing that it's not real. Whatever that fear is telling you isn't real. So if the fear is always about some scary story in the future. It goes along, blah, blah, blah. What if this happens? What if that happens? What should I do in case, something bad happens? And just to say about fear, the body and the mind and the brain included are primed for fear. The human body is primed for fear because it's all about survival. And we're looking for the things that are going wrong, and we want to prepare ourselves for the negative things that might happen to us. So in the realm of the human mind and body, there's a function to fear. So fear comes. So it's really good for us to learn how to work with fear. And the way to work with it is to not believe the stories that it's telling you. So Karina, I want to ask you, what would it be like for you to not believe the story that fear is telling you? Let's see if, yeah. Yes, not believe the story that fear is telling you. And when you do that, right away, you might become aware of the physical sensations in the body. And so you bring your attention there and allow these physical sensations, and I'll talk more about that in a second when I get to the body. But the most important thing is to realize that whatever the thoughts about fear are telling you just aren't true. So fear has, like I said, it has this protective mechanism where it tries to prepare us for what may or may not happen in the future. So the kind of medicine for fear and the edge of fear is to get comfortable with the fact that we don't know what's going to be happening. So as humans, we don't like to realize what we can't control and what we don't know. But the invitation of working with fear is to realize, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. That's the truth of it. So fear will tell you, what if this happens? What if that happens? And the logical mind and wise mind can come in and say, I don't really know what's going to happen. And then you allow yourself to expand into this openness that doesn't know and surrender into that. And then the healing of fear becomes trust, that you trust that what's going to happen is what needs to happen. And you trust that whatever comes, you're going to be able to deal with it. And you will be able to. Okay, Karina says, I get the shakes. Fine, that's fine. Just allow that shaking to come. For some people, there's a lot of intensity of emotion in the body. And so for you, that comes in shaking. Just allow that shaking to be there and use the breath also. So taking deep breaths to begin to calm the nervous system. So I might say things that contradict each other. So sometimes I talk about allowing sensations to be just as they are and just opening to them, the sensations in the body. And sometimes when we're flooded with sensation, it's useful to do some other things. And that might be to take some conscious breaths. I like one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly and just breathe. And if even that is too much sensation in the body, you can feel your feet on the floor. You can look around at things that are in the room and name them and get yourself very centered and present where you are located right now. So if the sensations are very strong and you feel flooded by the feeling, let go of allowing it to be there and just feel your feet on the floor, focus on the breath, and let your nervous system calm down. Okay. So Anna, hi Anna. So you say during this meditation, it felt like there were two guards in front of you. And a little later they were gone and you felt the desire for unconditional love, like a big hug. I guess the space without thoughts can be that big hug. I love that. That is so beautiful. So during the meditation, those, whatever it was that was guarding you, somehow those guards didn't need to do that anymore. And there was a relaxing into this spaciousness that felt like a big hug. That's really good. That's an openness to recognize that in that moment, those guards aren't needed and things are perfectly okay. Okay. All right. Just looking, I made some notes. I want to make sure that I cover everything. So I want to say just a couple more words about this open mind, where when we can allow ourselves to rest here, even if it's for a split second, doesn't matter how long it is, because it's always here and we can always come back. There's a stability here. It's stable. And it's, like I say, it's like an anchor. It's something that's always here. It doesn't move. It doesn't come and go. And it's always the ground of being, what underlies everything. It's the foundation of everything. And from here, we watch the thoughts and the feelings and whatever else is coming in our experience. We watch this come and go. And then we can stay here. So any thought can come, a neutral thought, a thought that has no meaning, a happy thought, a negative thought, a self-critical thought. And here we are just resting in this ground of being and this infinite open mind that holds all thoughts. Okay. So now I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about the body, the awakening in the body. And we've already covered that a little bit. And physical sensation is a part of all emotions. And I found it super helpful to get very comfortable with the body. Somebody wrote a comment on one of my posts on my blog the other day that it took her a while to really understand what it means to turn toward her experience. And I really got that. Like, I talk about that a lot, where you turn into your experience to understand what it's like in this present moment, to feel whatever you feel. And if you're used to staying in thought and being oriented toward the external environment and trying to solve problems in your mind and looking at what everybody else is doing and how they're reacting to you, if you're very used to having your attention out there in the world, it's a radical shift to turn inward into our experience, just out of curiosity to understand what it's like, not to get rid of it, but to understand it and to be curious about it. So turning toward our attention means that, and one helpful way to do that is to take a couple of breaths and then begin to open to whatever is happening in the body. The content of our thoughts will take us away, always into the past or the future. Even if our thoughts are about what just happened a second ago, it's still taking us into the future, into the past. But the physical sensations that are here now are more of a way in to our experience of presence, of aware presence, of loving presence, of this loving and welcoming space of awareness. So it's really a great practice to get used to being with our physical sensations and just noticing them, even if they're very strong or not so strong or subtle or new or whatever the sensations might be. It doesn't matter. So you bring a certain neutrality to them, and the space of awareness is neutral. It doesn't freak out about a certain strong sensation. The space of awareness doesn't go into panic. The space of awareness doesn't say, I like that sensation and I want that one to go away. Awareness in its openness accepts all of that. So it's about noticing what's happening in the body. And when you begin to practice this, there's a certain kind of relaxation that can happen and a relief. Often people report a relief. So even if the sensations that are coming are jittery or disconcerting even in some way or strong, there's a certain kind of relaxation that happens just by being with them, by allowing them to be as they are, not trying to get rid of them and not resisting them. So just allowing these sensations to be. So awakening can happen in the body when we stop pushing and pulling on our sensations and any other part of our experience, and we open and allow things to be as they are. For many of us, we have very strong conditioned patterns running in ourselves, in our personal selves from when we were very young. And these patterns have a very strong physical component to them that gets caught in deep in the body, into our cells. And my experience of being with the body, which I actually do a lot, I open to the body a lot over the course of a day, just to recognize what's here and to recenter myself into this being aware experience. The more I'm quiet and allow the sensations to be, the more the layers of sensations come. And this isn't always the case, so there's no rule about how it's supposed to be. Sometimes I open to the body and it's quite still. Sometimes if I'm allowing this to be for some time, so I'll feel some, maybe more superficial sensations. And then as I just sit here open to all the sensations, there's more and more subtle contractions that are brought into the light of awareness. And there's a great healing when this happens. There's a great healing by allowing all these deep sensations to come. Because they go underground when we have some difficult or even traumatic experiences when we're young and it can't process them. The sensations go underground outside of our awareness and they get stuck, a stuck energy in the body. And for Karina, this may be part of why you shake. When you finally give this space to these sensations to come, there's often shaking or maybe just jerky movements can come into the body. Some experiences that might seem a little unusual in the course of our daily lives. But that's okay. If you've ever gone to a meditation retreat, you'll notice that some people in their meditation, they shake quite a bit. This is just the releasing of stuck energy, and it's okay. There was a time in my path, this was many years ago, maybe 15 or 20 years ago at this point, where there was a lot of allowing going on, and there was crying. So I was at a long meditation retreat, and just somewhere in the middle of it, there was just this release, and I started crying, and I actually cried pretty much for 2 months straight. And just tears kept coming, and I got some support from teachers, just asking them, is this okay? Because it was a very obviously unusual experience. But there was this natural release that just wanted to come. And I made the space for it, and it was obvious that this release wanted to happen. And then eventually it stopped, it waned and then stopped. So allowing the physical sensation to come, whatever it might be. And if it's odd or seems to worry you, you could certainly ask me about it or get help from a teacher. Let me also check in here. Okay, just wanted to check in with the chat. So in terms of the body, taking some conscious breaths are a great way in. So as soon as what happens naturally for people, if you've been stuck in some kind of thought whirlwind and you're just, you've been contracted and pretty much 100% of your attention is in that. And then all of a sudden you realize, I've been stuck in a whirlwind. I've been lost in a thought storm. And it might be a very familiar thought storm, and you know what your familiar ones are. That would be the moment to take a breath. And that is such a lovely moment. There's a tendency in that moment to go self-critical. Oh God, I got caught again. Oh, if I were only more awake, I wouldn't have done that, or that wouldn't have happened, or I shouldn't have gotten caught. So I really want to invite you to abandon that whole layer of self-criticism when you wake up to realize that you've been lost in thought. Because it's really a beautiful opportunity to come home again. So even if you notice like that, oh damn, I got caught in that thought storm again, just say, no, I'm not even going to go there. Not to go into those thoughts, but to take a breath and take another breath. And often people do that quite spontaneously. When I work with people and I recognize that they've been in a thought pattern, and I'll invite them to stop and just realize what's been going on, there's a spontaneous, deep and conscious breath that's a release and a welcoming and a homecoming. So use the breath in that way, and use the breath as a medicine for the self-criticism that we can get into when our thoughts take control. There are few people that I work with, and I notice this in people in general. People love to tell their stories. They love to go on and on about what happened and this happened and that happened. And, before we get to, relaxing, I need to tell you this story first. And I really want to invite you to be less interested in your stories and more interested in what's happening in the body. Because the body has a certain kind of wisdom to it. This is like a little tip that I use a lot, and I invite other people to use as well, to really check in with what's happening in your body as a way to know what to do or what might be the next step for you in your life. So if you're going back and forth between two options, should I do this or should I do that? Should I do this now or should I do this later? Whatever the choice might be, that's a mental going back and forth, doing that cost-benefit analysis in your mind. But if you take each option and you float it in your mind, and then allow the body to just do whatever it does around that particular option, there's often, and I want to say almost all of the time, a certain kind of wisdom in the body that will give you the direction that you're looking for. Someone I know has gotten very, very good at listening to the body and letting her know how to respond in a certain situation or what to do when things are challenging for her. And she's also recognizing how much she ignored those messages from the body years ago, and how that ignoring got her into all kinds of difficult situations in her life. And now that she understands how all of that happened, she's much more likely not to let those conditioned patterns run, but to instead recognize that she's in a potentially difficult situation, and instead let the body lead her. So going into the body and looking at the body, welcoming those sensations in the body, super useful. So I just want to check in. Naomi, hi Naomi. I think I know your mom, right? Are you June's daughter? How about when the physical feeling lasts for a very long time? I've had tightness in my chest from stress for a number of weeks and have been meditating. Is visualization useful in exploring this tightness? And I want to ask you, visualization of what? If you can say. So this is tightness that you've had in your chest for a number of weeks. So I want to say a couple of things here. Sometimes when there's a feeling that's been hanging around for a long time, and this is where the art of working with these feelings comes in. And as you know, I'm on this spiritual path, but I'm also a psychologist. And this is where I want to wear my psychologist hat and say that if there's a feeling that's been hanging around a long time, and 2 weeks is actually short, it might even be like for decades, there might be a story around this feeling that needs to be unwound, and not repetitively telling the story over and over, but recognizing if there's some belief or thought that you might not realize has been there that might be keeping this feeling stuck. So Naomi, that would be something I would invite you to do, is to just do an exploration within your beliefs and see if there's something about the story or the beliefs around what's happening in your life that that might be related to this physical tightening in your chest. And once you identify that belief and untangle it, and by that I mean look at what you've been taking to be true that may not actually be true, there might be a little bit of openness there for this feeling to release. But sometimes I want to say these feelings just need their time to unwind on their own. I know in my own life, I can share that I go through periods of anxiety that where the feelings are there for a week, 2 weeks. I don't really know how long, I don't track. And it's, you know, I may not even be sleeping well for that period of time. And there's just a time, it's like a wave that comes of more physical sensation that I would label as anxiety. And it may be related to my reactions to certain situations that are going on in my life, or maybe not. And then it seems to just subside with its own time, although I do give it a lot of space and a lot of allowing. So I don't resist it. I've really given up trying to get rid of those kinds of feelings. I take good care of myself. I exercise. I eat well. Definitely don't overdo it with alcohol. Watch the caffeine. That's another thing that I'm really starting to get about people who have chronic anxiety. Really important to minimize your caffeine intake. So all of those self-care activities can help. And a full allowing of the feelings, untangling of the beliefs if there are any there, and then an acceptance that this is a wave that's coming, and maybe there's something there to show you, maybe not, but an acceptance rather than a continuation of trying to change or get rid of the feeling. So those are some of the things that I would suggest. Okay, Naomi says, visualizing the breath around that point of stress. Sure, if that helps you, that's fine. So breathing right into that feeling and seeing if that gives you some relief. That's good. So I'm a fan of everything. So try it out and see how that works for you. So Anna says, sometimes when talking to someone or a group of people, I notice myself getting stuck in thoughts, but I can't get back to my awakened state in the moment. I would love to be able to, though. What could I do? Well, just the fact that you notice yourself getting stuck in thought is huge, because I know we talk about non-duality, so I'm going to talk about being very dual right now. There are these thoughts that are happening in your mind, Anna, and then the noticing of them. And if you can notice that these thoughts are there, then what to experiment with and play with is just be that noticing presence. And it might mean that you stop talking for the moment, or you even might stop paying attention to the content of the conversation that's happening. And you just take a moment and you shift yourself away from the content of your thoughts, and you just breathe and go inside and allow and go into this openness. So you're very close to finding that openness if you're aware of them. And I want to also say in that moment, be very kind to yourself right then. Meaning, if I don't know what the thoughts you are that you're having, but if they're worry about how you're being accepted, which is the kind of thinking that people sometimes have in conversations, or are you saying the right thing? So there's this kind of potentially self-critical stream of thinking going. That would be a time to relax away from the content of those thoughts and open into this allowing and into this spaciousness. Great. So I want to, just checking here. Okay. So I want to go on and talk about, we talked about the mind, awakening in the mind, awakening in the body, and now awakening in the heart. And I want to say that for many of us, it's a very familiar experience, this awakening in the heart. So when we are grateful, or we feel love for someone or something, or we get a moment of joy, it might be because something great happens in our lives. We feel a little burst or a big burst of joy that bubbles up. Or we are overcome by beauty or the wonder of things. These are human experiences. We have these experiences all the time. And these are examples of the awakened heart. So the awakening is always here. We are this awakening. We are this awakened state. We are this one who's not this one, but this openness that's free of all the conditioning. That's who we always are. So this these experiences that come that we love to feel grateful or open or appreciative and loving, those are simply expressions of the one awakened heart. So one thing I want to say about this is notice when these experiences come in you and open to them. You know, for many of us, we tend to focus on what's wrong. So focus on what's right. Focus on what's loving. In fact, feel that right now. Here we are. So right now there are 17 people here, and I can see that it's varied between 15 and 17. Okay. So we had a problem, and now I'm starting the video again. Okay. Great. So so we were talking about, and whoever's not here, you'll be able to access this later. So we're talking about awakening in the heart and how there's this naturalness to that always. But for many of us, there are blockages to the heart. We feel afraid to let other people see who we really are. We put up blockages of some kind. We hide behind walls, and we're afraid of being truly intimate with other people. For the past 4 years, I've had a monthly gathering, a meditation group, but we do more than that at my house. And I actually ran into someone recently who had come to the gathering one time a few months ago. And I was at a cafe, and he came over to me, and he reminded me that he was at the group, and I recognized him. And he said, he thanked me for the group, and he said, I want to tell you that I liked it, but I didn't come back because I didn't really feel that comfortable there. It felt too, and he said this, it felt too kind and too warm. And now I'm using my own words, and too welcoming. It's like he was uncomfortable with the degree of openness in the group, and so uncomfortable that he couldn't come back. And of course there was a sadness around that I felt. And it said to me how he, you know, there was a certain closedness in his heart that he felt, and that there was a fear or maybe shame around meeting that openness, that closeness. And so that's an example of how the heart can be closed. So that's, for many of us, an edge, where we look at the things that the thought patterns and the conditioned patterns that separate us from others, that make us feel like we're separate and alone and alienated and isolated. Because there's a everything that happens to us in our lives that makes us fearful or upset or lonely or sad or frustrated, it's not about the events out there that are happening. It's about how we meet those events, how we look at those events. So in the end, it's all about our thoughts and the feelings that come from those thoughts. So if we feel a sense of separation or loneliness or anger at other people or frustration, there's something within our thoughts to be examined and ultimately to be let go of. And when we do that exploration around these conditioned patterns, we find that this openness of the heart is always here. So I want to invite you, and we have just a few more minutes, and I want to invite you to let yourself expand into the openness that's available in all of these heart-centered qualities. So what I like to do is go to a public space by myself and just let myself fully open to the people who are there. Like feel the sameness and the oneness with those people. The next time you're somewhere where you're overcome by a sense of beauty, let yourself, maybe it's in nature, in the natural world, or some other way, and maybe with some artistic endeavor, some art that you encounter, music that moves you. Let yourself be totally moved by that experience, because that's connecting with the awakened heart. And when you feel grateful, feel completely grateful. Grateful for everything just as it is. So we can do these things as a doing, so we go out to nature and we realize how beautiful it is, and we can make a list of the things that we're grateful for, and then we feel that gratitude. These are the qualities that consciousness naturally has anyway. Consciousness in this awareness, this openness, which allows everything and includes everything, is where it's known that there's no separation of anything from anything else. And if that's if that feels like a mental concept at this point, that's totally fine. But when you feel gratitude, and when you feel appreciation, and when you feel love, in a way, it's about the objects that are present in that moment, but in a more open and vast way, it's about awakened consciousness expressing itself in that moment. So experiment with that, and let that unfold in you. So we're just about at the end of our time together, and I'm going to post these 2 links because I don't know if everybody found their way back to this ending. I'm not sure why we got cut off the other time. I want to thank you all so much for being here. It's Saturday afternoon for me, and there's no other way I would rather spend a Saturday afternoon. So thank you so much for coming, for joining. You can let me know in the comments, how this was for you, and if there are other topics that you would like me to talk about or have as the topic for our gatherings. And I would love to have more of these in the future. So I wish you a beautiful day. Just want to see if there are any comments. Okay. Wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all. Lots of love. Bye-bye.